Now, I thought we'd have to wait a little bit for comeback season, but no, comeback season is already here, and we're just 2 match days in to the Liga season. Welcome to episode 715 of the Barcelona podcast, brought to you by the Blue Wire Podcast Network. I'm Dan Hilton, and Levante is back in the Liga, and they have brought the excitement back with them. I did predict that they would be staying up. Performance like that, they probably will. And speaking of up, please join me next weekend, next Sunday against Rayo Vallecano. That's your next chance to hang out with me on bigup.com and chat in live time. It is free to be a member. It's free to be in the chat. So please hit that link in the show notes or the description box. In the meantime, thanks to everybody that has subscribed to the YouTube channel. I am nearing 50,000, which is a number that I never thought possible, even after 8 years, even after the beginning of 2025, but we are almost there, and I could not do it without you. I also want to thank the listeners, and especially a big thank you to the new patrons who've joined this season, who for as low as $3 also get these shows without the ads. But that's enough of me plugging stuff and saying thank you, because without further ado, let's dive in. Here are the 5 headlines from Barcelona's 3-2 win over Levante. It's a comeback, by the way. Headline 1 is new kids back on the block. I don't know how many fans of late 80s, early 90s pop boy bands that I might have following my channel or listening to me in the podcast apps, but that was kind of the feeling that it was. It was Levante, who are back in the Liga, playing in that low block. 5 at the back, 4 in the midfield, 1 up top, and good luck getting through. I'm not saying that was the summing up of the first half. We're going to talk about more details. But for Barcelona, they were still without a few players, with De Jong. Congratulations to him on his second baby. Rooney, Bargi, and Tech also unable to be registered. Same thing with Gerard Martin. The big thing that stood out to me in the first 10 minutes of this game is that pitch, and now I want to defend Levante a little bit here, that pitch dictated this entire game. And you want to say that it's home field advantage? Sure. But having just remembered the floods in Valencia, which is where Levante is located, thinking about those floods, which took place less than a year ago, I still have those in my mind. And the reports out of Spain is that Levante didn't really do this on purpose. A ton of pitches around Spain are waterlogged this weekend. It doesn't rain that often in Spain, and when it does, things can get a little bit crazy. So knowing what we know about that waterlogged pitch, we could have expected that Lamine Yamal would be the one who would have the most difficulty in adapting his game to that pitch. On the other side, the 38-year-old and Jose Luis Morales, well, that's exactly how he would want it. Being able to use his legs, get out and run. Yeah, it's 38 years young, but getting out on the counter. And we saw that for the first time in the 8th minute, way offside. But still the idea for Levante was let's attack that high line and see what we can do. On the other side for Barcelona, I liked what Marcus Rashford provided in the first 15 minutes of the game. I thought he was the sharpest player in neon green because, of course, Barcelona cannot have even their kits prepared for this season. We still have to live in last season, and yeah, it's a whole thing. But Marcus Rashford, I thought, was pretty bright with the ball at his feet, using his speed to try to attack the width on that 5 at the back. 13th minute, Balde's shot was deflected. Levante were trying to man-mark Rafinha with Ordo Rey, formerly of La Masia. And I did think Levante's 5 at the back, that people aren't giving them credit. They also did show some of the cracks that Barcelona might have been able to exploit in the second half, especially there. If you're going to man-mark with your midfield, that is going to leave some space in between the lines. I am trying to give a little bit of credit to Levante's defense because somehow they did score the first goal of this contest. It came through Romero because Barcelona didn't track back. And I will use this a little bit of a, hey, we have that energy for Araujo when he messes up, so let's have a little bit of that energy for Cubarsí on the counterattack here. Araujo went wide to cut out the cross. He didn't get to it, and when it came back inside, it was 3v3, and I know if you look back, maybe you can give me some other culpability, but it looked like Pedri was a little slow to come back. Cubarsí also got beat on the shoulder dip from Romero, and it was a clean shot across goal with Cubarsí getting unbalanced. So yeah, some of the mistakes were made by some of our favorites, Cubarsí and Pedri. There's so many positive things they do when Barcelona have the ball that obviously we just live with their mistakes. I just want to remind people to keep that same energy with Araujo sometimes too. Headline 2 is hard done by hand. One of the things that stood out from the first half that I kind of already foreshadowed was that Lamine Yamal and Rafinha, while he isn't a play the ball to my feet and let me go, the conditions were certainly affecting him as well, and his movement in the middle of the field. Because Rafinha was playing as a number 10, and I understand it, that he's making those runs into the half spaces, and that was, in theory, going to create some confusion on the back line for Levante. But with the ball moving so slowly along that pitch, Rafinha is kind of like in slow motion. He couldn't get to where he needed to be in preparation, and those balls just were not coming over the top for him. They both, that being Rafinha and Lamine Yamal, could have also had better final balls in the first 30 minutes, and we can actually extend that farther out here too. 28th minute, a little bit of bright signs from Barcelona. Rafinha had a flick onto Torres that goes out to Balde. The ball clearly slowed by the wet pitch, though, and then Torres in traffic couldn't get enough on it, but hey, it was something from Barcelona. 31st minute, let's talk a little bit of Casado, because Casado was the only one really defending those central channels, because when Barcelona had possession, both the center backs had to go out wide. Pedri was also kind of ping-ponging everywhere, so that left Casado in the central channels to defend like hell, and he did a pretty good job of that, I thought, in the first half when things were pretty unbalanced for Barcelona. I will also mention, too, that Flick starting Casado is a little bit, I think, of intent in that starting lineup. And Flick, usually he plays nice with the board and doesn't really go against company policy or company words or whatever. But Flick did say in that press conference yesterday that Casado wants to be here and I want him here. And he was pretty defiant with that. And then today he gives a start to Casado over Gabi. And yeah, he made those changes at halftime. But I think this was an intention of Flick to say, Casado, you are wanted in my team, and you will play. De Jong obviously was unavailable with the baby, and Bernal, we don't know how he's going to come back, but I would expect, as I said, many months before he's even able to get back to fitness. So the whole not enough room for Casado thing is a problem that I think will not be in effect at this season at all, maybe next year. 36th minute, let's talk a little bit of Pedri. Pedri on his own, a little bit of dancing, doesn't get enough on the shot, but then almost creates a goal. And at this point, with Barcelona down 1-0, Torres hitting the post, boy, oh boy, that was worrisome. This is a huge miss on an exceptional pass from Pedri, put it to Torres' feet, but Torres just hit it too hard. And you know why he did that? He was trying to make up for all the shots that had come earlier in that game for Barcelona on that soaked pitch, so you get why you put so much behind it. But yeah, that one's got to be on frame, buddy. Yellow for Balde in the 44th minute. He got it for punching the ball into the ground. It was a frustrating day for Balde, to say the least, which does bring me to the yellow. It was a yellow and a free kick just outside the box for Barcelona. Then a counter, though, the other way. Balde on the yellow, tracking back, and got that tackle in right at the right time. But then after the shot from Levante, VR says, hey, Hernandez, take a look at this. They said that Balde got a hand on the ball on the shot. Then Morales finishes the PK. And this is our first. What do you think? My thought is that if your arm is completely inside the body, then not to say that the hand doesn't matter, because yes, you can get a handball like that, but his arm was so close to the body, and unless he just put it strictly behind him, that's the only way to get out of this. And Balde, Kubarsi showed us earlier, if you're going to put your hands behind the back, it's not the best way to defend. It's just the way that you have to defend if you don't want that handball called on you. And I really do think that Balde was certainly hard done by here with that call. Headline 3 is set piece deliveries. Halftime came, and we knew that we were going to have to see some changes. What they were going to be, I wasn't sure. Rashford and Casado, as I mentioned, I actually thought they were positive in the first half. Some of the only positive players for Barca. Hansi Flick, that's why I'm sitting here, and he's there. Because the decision to put on Gabi and Olmo, in hindsight, makes complete sense. Gabi and Olmo are two of the best that Barcelona has, and this is for Gabi dating all the way back to the Koeman days of attacking the half spaces against what wound up being 9 behind the ball at times and all 11 behind the ball at others. And I think Gabi does a really good job in those tight spaces, but finding where to attack in between the lines. And Olmo does the same thing to just even a better degree. So in hindsight, the vision from Hansi Flick made a ton of sense. And if it was going to work from outside, it was going to have to come on the foot of Lamine Yamal. Right out of halftime, there was a shout for Barcelona for a handball. Nothing to it. But fortunately, Lady Luck was starting to look Barcelona's way. Here comes the 2-1 in the 49th minute. It's Pedri from a corner. Lamine Yamal squares it to him. And Pedri has so much time to line this up. There's not much to say about it. Other than Pedri, if you give him that kind of time, even from 3 to 5 feet outside the penalty box, if you're going to have a player who's of that much quality, that much time, he's going to put everything behind it. And he did. The fact that he kept it down on that pitch, that is what I thought was most important about that strike. And that's what makes it 2-1. And then on to the 52nd minute, Barcelona is back at the corner flag. This time it's Rafinha with an in-swinger right off the corner to Ferran Torres. And this is a weird ball because it gets all the way through that crowd, but Torres, he gets it one time. And hey, you can get mad at Tiburon, the Shark, for his misses today, or including hitting the crossbar, but this is a one-time goal that ties it up at 2-2. I have to give a shout out to Fraser on the watch long. He had it here that it does make sense that the Shark is doing this on the waterlogged pitch. So, of course, the Shark is going to swim when the pitch has that much water in it. Good stuff from both Ferran Torres there, and then Joan Garcia with some important saves right after it was 2-2. Levante had a little bit of a push, but Joan Garcia snuffed out those fires very quickly, and they're going to get forgotten in the big story of the game, especially because he let in 2 goals, but those are the saves that Joan Garcia was brought in to make. Headline 4 is no penalty, no luck. Olmo was definitely making the difference in between the lines for Barcelona. They were pressing, they were buzzing around Levante's box. With Eric Garcia, who I also thought was very positive in this game. I think next to Pedri, he was probably my best in the full, well, I know he didn't play the full 90, but in his appearance on the field. I let Eric Garcia, thumbs up for him, where he was more at home in the first half. And then as the game was calling out for more numbers and Levante was going deeper and deeper, and he made his position a bit fluid to get overlapping of Lamine Yamal when necessary, underlapping when necessary, and also getting into that box to add an extra body with that head. And the inverse of that, unfortunately, is that in the second half, Lamine Yamal and Ferran Torres still continue to struggle in that game with the wet pitch. We know that both of them are capable of much, much more. In the 76th minute, Araujo and Balde off for Lewandowski and Christensen. More good changes for Hansi Flick to feel like, hey, we got to keep pushing, that Levante is going to be that deep. We're going to throw on another forward, and then in Christensen, a better ball playing center back, because that line of confrontation, not that it couldn't be any higher at midfield, but continued to push with possession, and he went Christensen and his line-breaking passes on the field for that. 81st minute, this is no luck and no penalty for Barcelona. No foul initially against Barcelona either, and then Lewandowski goes down. Alcazabal doesn't hit the ball at all on this. I don't understand how VAR says don't even look at it. I think if you're going to cry conspiracy, I think conspiracy comes to VAR just saying play on. I don't know what they saw. Was this a makeup call for maybe Lewandowski fouling somebody else in the buildup? But the ref didn't blow the whistle. So you've got to play to the final whistle. And that was the fact that this should have been a PK. It was awful, awful refereeing from Hernandez. And I know there are a lot of people, either in the comments or who hit me up in the chat on the watch along, were saying that Hernandez always does this. He's had 1 or 2 other VAR incidents against Barcelona, but I generally think that Hernandez does do a pretty good job. This is just bad. This is just bad from Hernandez. And if he gets a fine after this one from the refereeing committee, that's not too crazy to me. The idea of no luck also continued when Campos was able to make a save he knew nothing about on a deflected shot from Rafinha that definitely could have been the 3rd goal in that game for Barcelona. The headline 5 is justice is served. Eric out for Koundé, which I think if you have both Eric Garcia and Jules Koundé available and you can sub one in for the other, that is a great problem for Hansi Flick to have. You don't need a consummate starter when you're playing this many games. The fact that Koundé isn't the starter against 2 teams that play low blocks to start this season, I'm not worried. That tells me it's a game state situation. And if Hansi Flick's going to trust his whole team and says, hey, you're the kind of profile that's needed in this situation, Koundé, he's definitely going to be trusted in most other situations this season. But Eric Garcia is starting in great form. So play the guy that makes most sense against a low block. That makes sense to me. And then Koundé has all that energy to come in instead of the overloads that we saw in the second half of last season. Hey, the guy's healthy, comes in with a lot of energy, but unfortunately he hits the ball a little bit wide after Olmo, Lewandowski, Ferran Torres, everybody getting battered up in that box. 89th minute, it's a free kick right outside the box, so close to being inside the box on the foul on Lamine Yamal, but still, Lady Luck just a bit far from Barcelona. Then the 91st minute, here it comes. You make your own luck. The 3-2, it's Lamine Yamal, chip in, and this is what happens. Justice is served, and yeah, this isn't Levante's fault. They play with the game that the referee is calling, but Alcazabal, the same guy that should have given up the PK, it goes off the back of his head, jumping up with Ferran Torres, and that is a goal for FC Barcelona. Gabi, Olmo, and Koundé, I want to say, as we put this one to bed, they all deserve shout-outs for being difference makers in the second half, coming on as subs. But my man of the match is definitely Pedri, not just for the golazo, but when this game, especially after they had scored the 3-2, in those last 6 minutes, Pedri, you could feel it. After Inter Milan last year, every time they get the chance, I want them to take the air out of the ball. And led by Pedri, they certainly did do that. Olmo, Gabi, Christensen, Kubarsi, that game just slowed down the last 6 minutes, and Barcelona easily took care of those 3 points. First comeback of the season is in the books. It did take 700 passes, 82% possession, 10 shots on target, and a whole lot of desire, but FC Barcelona got the job done, and they continue to soar on 6 points now from 2 games in the Liga. Unfortunately, I don't have good news for you from the U20 Intercontinental Cup between Barcelona's U20 squad, or the U19s from the UEFA Youth League win last season with Giuliano Belletti. Unfortunately, they lost in sudden death PKs. So not even regular PKs, sudden death PKs to Flamengo's U20 side at the Maracanã, which certainly is an experience for those kids. John Virgili had a terrific goal in the game. Check it out if you haven't seen it. Alvaro Cortez thought he'd won it with a header in stoppage time. Then Flamengo tied it up again even later in stoppage time. And then PKs was the difference. Yeah, nothing is simple in youth football, and that was definitely the case here. But hopefully that is a building block for a lot of those kids. And it is a team, while John Virgili continues to impress, that's probably a U20 side for FC Barcelona without their 5, maybe even 6 best U20 attackers. Again, Lamine Yamal is in there. Tony Fernandez wasn't there. Joe Fernandez is not there. Rooney Bargi is not there. Even Guy Fernandez is not there. So for all the talent that wasn't there, good on them to get that experience. And I do hope you experience with me the watch along next Sunday against Rayo Vallecano. Again, subscribe, give a like, comment, and all that stuff. This has been an exciting start to this season, and I'm excited to continue this journey with you. As always, until next time, Forza Barca.